This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am very happy to be reporting from down in Niagara today. I'm here with Inniskillin winemaker, Nick Gizuk. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today, Jamie.
Well, you have been at Inniskillin for quite some time, but it's only recently that you became head winemaker. Would you mind telling me a little bit about your history within Inniskillin?
Sure. I've been here for 12 years total, 2 years as an intern where I was still traveling and doing dual vintages, New Zealand and Australia. Then I became full-time about 10 years ago. I started as cellar hand, lead cellar hand, assistant winemaker for 3 years, and then winemaker for the last 3 years.
Now, when it comes to wine education, you didn't really start in the wine world, did you?
No, I definitely didn't start in the wine world. I think it's always a funny story when you ask wine professionals how they get into wine. You kind of fall backwards into it, most of us. Originally, I was going to be a soccer player. I had a full ride scholarship to North Carolina.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Blew my knee out. Then backup plan was to go to school and try to fix my knee and become a doctor. So I started at Guelph University. I did a major in molecular biology and genetics with a minor in food science. Really kind of got me hooked into wine. I started a master's, realized it was not my foray. I really wanted to get my hands dirty and really apply myself a little bit more. So then I took the program at Niagara College for 2.5 years and got into the wine world that way. It was a lot of fun.
What was your start at Inniskillin?
My start, again, it was why I came here. Again, there was a great winemaker at the time here, Nicholson. I was really looking to perfect my skills. As a great Canadian winemaker, I thought ice wine was core to learning. There's no better place than Inniskillin, so I just leapt at the opportunity to come work here as an intern, and then I'm just one of those guys that never left. If you look at the history of a lot of people who have moved through this building, there's a lot of winemakers and people in the industry that have come through these doors. Like I said, I'm just the guy that hasn't left.
Now, Inniskillin have quite the history in Ontario, in Canada, across the world. How would you say that philosophy lies today, and how does it apply to the way that you think about making wines today?
Yeah, I still would consider Inniskillin probably the Canadian wine leader, right? We're in 84 different countries for our ice wine,
wow.
Right? So we are the leader probably in the export market for Canadian wines, and I think that comes with a great responsibility for our brand, right? We've been doing that for a long time with sustained quality and high level of wines. So I think going forward, continuing to do that, continuing to elevate the bar and really push not only ice wine, but table wine as a leader for Canadian wines outside of the country, and really letting people know that Canada makes some kick-ass wines.
I'm down here for I4C, the International Cool Climate Chardonnay Celebration. How important is Chardonnay to your portfolio here at Inniskillin?
I think Chardonnay has been a key wine in the portfolios since the 90s, right? So it's always been one of the core, whether it was Reserve, Triple Vineyard, Alliance, Montague, it's always been one of the staples of this brand for good reason. We have some great vines with some great age that are now really coming into their own. Montague's got some vines that are north of 40 years old, so it's really part of the core of Inniskillin, and I think it will be for a long time. And everybody loves a good Chardonnay, I think.
Let's talk about Montague a little more. Some would say it was the jewel in the crown of the Inniskillin vineyard portfolio. What would you have to say to that?
I would say they're exactly right, and it still is to this day. It's perfectly positioned in the middle of the Niagara Peninsula, enjoys a lot of thermal accumulation, great drainage, great airflow. Again, we have some great vines planted there that are really becoming into their own age, north of 30 years. We have some Pinot, Chard, Riesling, Pinot Gris, Sauv Blanc, all these key varieties on this property that really build the core of the Inniskillin brand and all of our base wines.
How would you describe the terroir of the Montague vineyard?
Again, when people say terroir, I don't necessarily think dirt. I think sense of place, right? Really giving a sense of place.
Of course.
Montague, when you look at the region, you look at where the lake, the river, and the escarpment is situated, it's essentially right in the middle of all these great geological features. That really gives it its own unique microclimate, I think, and you can see year in and year out, through these vintages, even challenging ones and great years, it really shines in all of these vintages, and I think it's because of where it's situated, the climate, the airflow, all of these factors really making Montague unique.
Let's talk a little bit more about the airflow, because I was fascinated to hear some of the influences upon disease pressure that the airflow brings to the Montague vineyard.
Yeah, so again, like I said, being backed up to the Niagara Regional Airport gives us a huge advantage because there's no blocking of the diurnal effect from the lake, from the escarpment, right? So that airflow from the escarpment coming up, from the lake hitting the escarpment and coming back down, it really drives through that vineyard. So even on the stillest day in Niagara, you could be standing in that vineyard and still feel sort of a breeze on your face because it's sloped down and there's always airflow. So even in those summer small rain spritz that we got, that vineyard really dries out quickly and limits the amount of pressure with powdery downy mildew.
Ontario is known for its Chardonnay and its Pinot Noir, and yet I think you really enjoy making Riesling and Cabernet Franc. Please tell me a little bit about that.
I do. I like stepping out the void a little bit. Riesling, I'm an acid guy. I love steely, bony Rieslings that really show purity of fruit. Riesling's always been one of the wines that has always got me. I know people say Riesling, oh, I don't love Riesling, but it's one of the wines that actually got me into the industry. That squelching acidity, pure tone of fruit in a wine, really is one of the wines that really opened my eyes. Cab Franc, again, I think it's the variety that's really suited for this area. It's beautifully suited to do red wines, rosé wines, ice wine. It does a very good job of making ice wine, which is core to the portfolio here at Inniskillin. It's the older parentage to Cab Sauv, and it really ripens about 2 weeks earlier than Syrah and Cab Sauv, which I think is a huge advantage in our area.
I also tasted some of your Pinot Gris today. Pinot Gris in Ontario can go all over the place. Please tell me a little bit about your focus in making Pinot Gris and your thoughts with this Reserve Pinot Gris.
That's the funnest thing about Pinot Gris for me, is I don't think there's a defined style.
Right.
So as a winemaker, there's lots of play, room to be creative, which is fun for me. I don't like thin, flabby Pinot Gris that you just drink and swill back. I like bigger, bolder textured wines, not necessarily the full extent of a northern Italian Pinot Gris, but in that range where there's lots of texture, body, still bringing to the front a lot of fruit and complexity, and really making a broader, more balanced Pinot Gris. So I think that's what you get with our Reserve Gris.
There's been a massive interest in rosé over the last, let's say, 2 decades, perhaps 1 decade here in Canada, but over the world, all over the world, people are looking for rosé, and you have lent into that quite seriously.
I have leaned in it quite seriously, yeah. So we make 3 different styles of rosé here. So our bottom tier, not to say bottom tier, our blended rosé in our Niagara State is Gamay, Riesling, and Cab Franc blended. It's a beautiful, lush, approachable Riesling that has a little bit of residual sweetness, makes it very pleasable to the summer crowd. I also do a higher end Cab Franc rosé here, which is more of the drier, lighter Provence style, where it really brings forward this lush strawberry rhubarb character. And then I do a wine that's kind of not a rosé, but kind of in the middle, which is our P3, which is a blend of Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Petit Verdot. I wouldn't classify it as a white wine, I wouldn't classify it as a rosé, but something in the middle that's a little bit special that we only serve down here at the estate.
That's a blend one probably wouldn't find anywhere else in the world. Tell me about that blend.
So it's a fun blend, a happy accident that we came across a little while back. We've been making this wine for, I think, 7 vintages now. It started as Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Meunier. Unfortunately, Pinot Meunier, with the block that we had access to, is no longer with us. We then transitioned it for 2 years to Pinot Blanc to be the 3rd P. Unfortunately, that vineyard is no longer with us as well, so we've had some hardships with our 3rd P. For the last 2 years, I've actually been using Petit Verdot in it for the 3rd P. So it's a Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Petit Verdot blend. The Pinot Noir builds this beautiful red fruit structure. The Gris gives this mid-palate melon tone and citrus. And the Petit Verdot gives this real hardline red fruit and acidity to really round out the palate. It's a very unique blend, as you've tried today.
Going back to the Montague, we tasted your Montague Pinot there. How do you find making Pinot in Niagara?
I think, as much as everybody will say, Pinot is always a challenge making it anywhere. I love the versatility and the ability to grow great Pinot in this area. Our biggest challenge is moisture, so dealing with that very well in this area is sometimes a challenge, but always a challenge that I'm willing to accept. Being creative in the growing season, letting fruit hang out, and making very true Pinot Noir, varietally true, to really showcase the fruit is really what I'm all about when it comes to Pinot. Not over oaking and making sure that we really can showcase the beautiful age and nice touch that our vineyards and acidity too. I forgot to mention acidity. Balanced Pinot leaning into our cool climate. Acid in this area is really what can stand us apart from some of the other Pinot regions.
When it comes to aromatics and flavor profile, how would you describe both the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir that comes from the Montague?
So they both have their very own signature from these fruits in this area. The Chardonnay, when it gets really later into the season and I can hang it out for a good period of time, the one side of the block gets this very golden hued specked color on the fruit that lends to this white fleshy peach character that's unmistakable in this fruit. It really sets Montague apart from a lot of other Chardonnays. The Pinot, the two back blocks have this beautiful, rich cherry, dark cherry tone that comes out of the fruit. I generally like to hang some of this block out later into the season, longer than most people will think is reasonable to hang Pinot out. I really like my Pinot to almost start desiccating. It really builds the mid palate in a lot of my Pinots and really builds a lot of red fruit structure.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for entertaining and hosting us today. It's been a great pleasure to taste through all these wines, and this is the first in-person winemaker interview I have done in quite some time. It's been quite the pleasure. Thank you for your time, and thanks for joining us at Good Food Revolution, and we look forward to tasting with you over the course of I4C in the next few days.
Thank you, Jamie. It was my pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.